Howdy y'all. Wanted to do a little list building for Seraphon today, so I'm going to look at the Stegageddon. We know what that one is. That one was previewed by Warhammer online on their community site, and so you saw this graphic there. That was what they showed us, and that was what they previewed us for the Stegageddon. All these Stegadons. So is this viable? Or can we run a pure Stegadon list? Or maybe what should we run to where it actually performs a little bit better? It's not a bad list. It'd be a lot of fun what they presented. Now, it's almost impossible to get a Stegadon right now. So if you don't have any, you're going to have a little bit of difficulty getting 8 Stegadons that this list calls for. But if you can, get as many as you want, because I love the Stegadons in the new book. I have 5, so... that's probably ahead of the game on most people, I think. So let's see what we can do with 5 Stegadons and build out a Stegageddon list. I think they have a pretty good base here. That Stegadon with Skink Chief is kind of that cog of Stegageddon, in that you're going to give him the buffs, you're going to give him the artifact, and you're going to give him some fun stuff to play with. They chose to take 2 Engines of the Gods, which I'm not really sure why, because you can only perform the Cosmic Engine once. No matter how many engines you have in your list, you can only do it once per turn. So, not the best allocation of resources there. Hopefully, maybe the FAQ, we'll see if that'll let us do more than 1 engine per turn. But as of right now, there's literally no reason to take 2 engines, because you can't even use it. They do have 4 Battalion Stegadons here, which is kind of nice, and the Battalion. I'm not going to put any Battalions in my list that we're doing today, just because I want to focus on the Stegadons and what can we do with that. They didn't take any battalions here. I'm assuming they put that in Coalesced, but probably not Thunder Lizards, so they might have. I guess they would have had to if they did Stegadon for Battleline. But we're going to look at a variant for us here, see what we can do. We are going to put it in Coalesced, and these 3 Sacred Astrums are actually fairly important. So when you choose these at the beginning of your hero phase, you really need to focus on what your plan is for that turn, because each one here is really good. So if you do the Hunter Steed, add 1 to run and charge rolls for Seraphon units. This is really good if you're charging your Stegadons forward. And this synergizes really well with Thunderquake. So you can run and charge and shoot with Thunderquake. And so if you turn on that aspect of Thunderquake and then use Hunter Steed, you're basically getting an extra 2 inches, because you got +1 to your run and +1 to your charge. So you're getting an extra 2 inches on there. So you're already going pretty quick, and that will be able to add on those extra few inches if you need that to get across the board and make that Alpha Strike. The Great Drake, I like switching to this when you've got your Stegadons in combat, and now you're switching Thunderquake to the attacks, and then you add this to extra attacks. So you can, once you get them into combat, you can then start buffing those attacks higher and higher on those Stegadons. The Sage's Staff, this one's really good. I am going to take Croak in this list. I think he is almost an auto add in every list. He's 320. If you really want to focus on him, you kind of got to put some extra stuff into him. But even just as a standalone, he's pretty good, because he's your command point generator. But if you need to get off some spells, this right here, Sage's Staff, is great to switch over to if you want to. I'm not going to take any bound endless spells in this list, because we don't have room for that. We got to have Stegadons. We are doing Coalesced, so we will get +1 to their jaw attacks. That's nice for all the Stegadons. Subtract 1 from damage. This is amazing when you're going up against elite infantry or elite shooting, whatever, spells. It's going to reduce that damage down to 1. Negative terrain effects. Who plays with terrain? I don't play with terrain effects too often. Some people do. I don't, so I just ignore that. Ignore bravery modifiers. Again, we're not going to have many many models in this army, so we're not going to worry about that too much. We are doing in Thunder Lizards, so we will have to take their command ability and their command or their artifact. but it does add 2 wounds to all of our monsters, which is basically the entire army. And I'm not going to take any Battalions in this list, but we do get to roll the Engine of the Gods again for a command point. So we will have an Engine of the Gods in this list, and so that will be able to be rolled there. Our battalion I'm going to take in this list, we are going to do Thunderquake Temple Host. And so I'm going to take an Engine of the Gods and a Stegadon Chief. We're going to put the Chief in the battalion, though, and then 2 Stegadons. And then I'm gonna take a 6-man unit of Kroxagor, just because I think they synergize pretty well with this. And if we do that, we can get this entire army down to just, I think it was 15 models, and that's including the pack of 6 Kroxagor. This is a pretty versatile battalion. I really like this because you can switch it depending on what you need. So if you choose Swift in your hero phase, then you can run and still shoot and charge in the same turn. So that makes these Stegadons fast, makes you be able to hit hard with them, and you can, if you need to reposition across the board somewhere, you still have the option to do that. Once you get them into combat, you can switch it over to +1 to the attacks, and it works on the attacks on the Stegadon, so that's nice. So all of a sudden you're adding 1 for the jaws, 1 for the battalion for all the melee. And then, if you spend a command point from the Stegadon Chief, add 1 more. So all of a sudden, you're stacking these things up, and they're all multi-wound, multi-damage attacks. So it can be pretty chompy. So here's the list I want to go for. So here's my Stegadon list, Stegageddon list. We have the Stegadon with Skink Chief, and he's taking the command trait Prime Warbeast, which gives you extra attacks for the mount. So that's nice. So already he's pretty killy. He's going to get a little bit more. His artifact, we're gonna take Sacred Stegadon Helm. That just gives him a +1 to his save, and also some extra damage for the Skink Chief staff, which is kind of, I mean, it helps if you charge, but it's not too relevant. The reason we're taking it is for that save. So now he's a base 3-up save, and if he's in combat with an elite unit, he can stick his helm, his horns at another unit and get another +1. So this guy is potentially +2, 2-up save in combat. Not too bad. And his command trait is, his command ability is really good in this army because he can spend a command ability and +1 to all the attacks for a Skink unit, which is basically everything in the army except Croak and the Kroxagors. So you're going to want to be popping that off on him and the Stegadons that are in his, like, in the battalion with him, in the little war party that you're going to send forward. That's kind of your offensive unit. So I'd be grouping him with the 2 Stegadons that are from that battalion. They're going to be going together. They're going to be sticking like glue, and he's going to be popping command points on them as much as he can. I'm also taking an Engine of the Gods, and I'm giving him the required artifact, that Fusel of Conflagration. That's not very good. Every once in a while, I'll do some mortals, or it'll destroy itself, but you've got to take it. So I'm taking the Engine of the Gods, and I'm going to stick this thing back with Croak and the Kroxagor and an extra Stegadon. That's kind of my B team. They're going to be holding an objective or going after another objective on their own. But that's kind of my other. That's kind of my B team. My A team is the Chief and his 2 Stegadons, and then B team are these Croak, Engine of the Gods, and Kroxagor, and another Stegadon. The engine is kind of versatile. I mean, it'll do damage on its own. It's basically just a Stegadon, but also you have the chance to heal. You have the chance to summon if he's near Croak. So I think I'm going to stick him back with Croak for a turn or two to see if I can get in some extra bodies. So we're going to cheat a little bit. You'll probably have to bring 10, 20, maybe 30 warriors for summons if you happen to roll those. But that'll give us a few extra bodies on the board via summons, so we can kind of hold some objectives. Croak is there because he's just awesome, but you need those command point generations, because in this army, that Stegadon Chief, he's going to be burning through command points. But also, you want to spend one every time on the engine so you can roll it twice looking for those summons. So you're going to want to spend 4 command points every turn. You're going to start this list with 1, then you get another one in your phase, and then you're going to roll 3 dice for Croak and hopefully get maybe 2 more. and that way you can use 4 every turn. 1 for the engine to let it roll again, and then 3 for the Stegadons if they get into combat to pop up their attacks even more. I added an extra Stegadon because we needed another Battalion, and we're not using Skinks in this list. We're going to all Stegadons. And then I added Kroxigor into that, into the Battalion instead of Razordons or Salamanders, just because I wanted an elite unit and just kind of go with the theme. But also Kroxigor are pretty good. I mean, you can, with extra jaw attacks from Coalesced and then extra attacks from the Thunderquake, I think they're going to have 7 attacks, and most of those are doing extra wound or 2 wounds each. And I don't even think I'd take a Moonhammer if I had the option. I just take all the normal hammers just so you get the extra damage, and you're probably not going to run into too many hordes. And if you do, I think you're going to do fine without the Moonhammer. It's only 2-inch range anyway. But then if they're getting hurt, try to heal them up with Croak. He's got some good spells. And they're going to kind of be his personal protectors there for Croak. So if you had to split it up into 3 groups to hold 3 different objectives, I'd put Croak and the Kroxigor on one. I'd put Engine within range of Croak, at least turn 1, and the Stegadon on one, and then put the Battalion on another. And I'm probably going to try to Alpha Strike with that Battalion if I can. I'll let them go first, of course, if they want to. If they will, and then they'll definitely be in range to get the full force of the Stegadons. But this is my Stegadon list. This is how I like it. We've got 5 Stegadons here, so not bad. We've got Croak, and then we've got a big unit of 6 Kroxigor. Easily could fit this in one box and travel with this to a tournament. So maybe once this quarantine's over, maybe we'll try it. All right, let's see what it looks like on the board. We're gonna do a little deployment. Let's see what we can do. All right, I got it set up here in Tabletop Simulator, and you can see I've got my group of Kroxigor here. They're kind of my front lines, absorb and attack. Those guys are pretty tough. They can do it. They got a lot of wounds. They'll have good save, and then we can heal them up if we need to. And we've got our 1 Stegadon here. Another Engine of the Gods here, and then Croak right here. So what I'm envisioning here is if we're lined up for like shifting objectives or something, where I know I want to take out 2 of 3 and try to hold them as long as possible, I'm going to group them up in 2 different groups like this. And then we've got our Stegadon Chief here in the middle, along with our 2 Stegadons. So that's kind of how I'm envisioning this setup going. You can see them right on the line. I'm getting those guys right close up on the line. If somebody wants to charge them, they'd probably be wise in charging the other Stegadons if they can kind of Alpha Strike somehow, because they are pretty nasty once they charge. But I think our counter attack is going to be strong enough with these monsters that we can absorb a counter strike or an Alpha Strike, and then make sure and get our counter strike off. These guys are going to be moving pretty quick. So starting from that line, they can go 8 inches base if we have flipped the Hunter Steed and then our run and charge. So we're going to get an extra 2 inches. So we're going 10. Plus they can run, so they can go 16. So all of a sudden, you're 16 inches out, and you've got a pretty decent little charge there. They've got +1 to charge, so all you've got to do is a 7-inch charge. That's doable, especially if you need to re-roll one. If they get to go first, then obviously they'll be quite a bit closer, and you won't even have to do that run. If you can let them go first, and then you don't have to run and charge, you can flip it over to attacks and make them even more deadly if you can. Once you get Croak out towards the middle, that's when he'll really shine. He'll be able to start popping off those comets and those spells that he can spam. He's not going to be able to do too much from right here, so make sure you take maybe a buffing spell for him to buff up your Kroxigor. Maybe let them fly or something like that. And then cast Mystic Shield. If you can line him up to where you cast Mystic Shield on this Chief here, so he's at a 2-up rerolling 1s, that would be pretty good. And he does have 1 spell that he can cast board wide, so you've got 4 to deal with there at the beginning. Make sure you plan for those. But that's what my my Stegadon list is going to look like, I think. Should be a lot of fun. Look at those beautiful 3D models. So Stegageddon, let's get them. All right, let me know if there's a list you want to talk about. Maybe drop a battle plan for. We're gonna do a tabletop simulator tournament, sort of, here in the next few days, since we're all on quarantine lockdown, and we'll see how that goes. All right, y'all have a good one.